So, gentlemen and ladies, we're going to be starting the lecture right away. And as a matter of fact, we shall be dealing with an important subject. And this topic is about denture surveyor. We'll be dealing with denture surveyor. And it's very important aspect of your training as an undergraduate dental technology student. So I will show you my screen now so that you can see my lecture notes. Yeah, you can see my lecture note. And as a matter of fact, we shall be looking at it together so that we can understand what denture surveyors are and how important dental surveyors are to survey and to the work we do as dental technologists. Now you can see right away now the subject matter today, dental surveyor and survey. I shall be presenting this in the next 1 hour or less. I will expect that everybody will be very attentive during this period. What are learning objectives? Learning objectives are what you are expected to go home with at the end of this lecture. What are you expected to go home with? You are expected to go home with knowledge of surveying and how to distinguish between what is called surveying and a surveyor. You also understand the principles of surveying. There are principles to surveying. You understand what other court means, non-other court means. You understand the rule of teaching, the types of teaching, and be able to identify different accessories that help you to understand, to do surveying. A surveyor is an appliance, and as a matter of fact, it is used to do surveying. So I give you a definition there that will help you to understand what I mean. A surveyor is an instrument used in the construction of removable partial denture, and it is used to locate or delineate the contours and the relative position of abutment teeth and associated structures. Glossary of postodontist terms is what I'm quoting from. That is how they define surveyor. Surveyor is an appliance. You will see image of a surveyor as we go along. But surveying is a procedure of locating or delineating the contour. That is a way of finding out where the contour is. The contour is the most bulbous part of a tooth. You know, the tooth is not a straight body kind of thing. It is rounded and has tapered end towards the root, or let me say towards the gum. So it's not something that is straight. There are contours, and these contours are interesting subject to procedure of surveying. So what are the principles of surveying? Principles are what you should know that guide surveying. The terms, let me use that word, the terms that guide surveying. So fundamentally surveying a tooth. Surveying a tooth is finding out the highest contour on that tube, the maximum, convexity. In other words, finding out the most bulbous aspect of a tooth in relation to a plane, and the plane usually is occlusal plane, locating the contour in relation to the occlusal plane. That is surveying. And another point of note is that it is vertical plane. That is, if a vertical plane is brought into contact with a convex surface, the convex is the most bulbous aspect of the tooth. They will contact at a point of maximum convexity. And if the convex surface is rotated, stay in contact with the plane, an imaginary line will be traced. And it will be at the greatest, it will give you trace at the greatest circumference. Now, the point I'm making now is that if you place, let's say, a straight object, making contact with the most bulbous aspect of a tooth, then in relation to the occlusal plane, then you are going to get, you are going to be able to delineate. You are going to be able to delineate the undercut areas and the non-undercut areas. So this is the survey line, that the area of the the area of the tooth above this line is called the undercut area, and below is non-undercut area. Now let me get it a little clearer now. If you look at the image here, here you can see the occlusal plane. Now that is a tooth for you. This tooth was bent in relation to the occlusal plane, and here it is a straight one. Now, the point this is making to us is this: once you place a straight line or a straight object, making contact, you can see my pointer making contact with the most bulbous aspect of this tooth, and in relation to the occlusal plane, then you will get the undercut area. The undercut area is every area below the survey line, and the survey line is usually drawn on the most bulbous aspect of a tooth. If you look at the third image here, if you are following my pointer, you will see that, yes, it's making contact with the most bulbous aspect of this tooth towards the neck of the tooth. Therefore, we don't have undercut below the survey line. We only have a non-undercut area. So we have a non-undercut area. We don't have undercut on this particular tooth. But for this, there's a slight small undercut area there. So what surveying is doing is to be able to define the undercut area and non-undercut area if a straight object is placed on a tooth to make contact on the most bulbous aspect in relation to the occlusal plane. So once you place a straight line, or a straight object making contact with the most bulbous area, every area above that point of contact is called non-undercut area. Every area below that point of contact is called non-undercut area. So that is how surveying is doing to delineate the undercut and non-undercut area. And that helps you to do a lot of things when you are designing your partial denture. Now, the real object, the real thing that makes you to have, to do survey is called a surveyor. So like we said before, a surveyor is an object, and you will soon see how it looks like, that is used to define undercut or non-undercut area. Let me put it that way. But let's just look at parts of a surveyor. Parts of a surveyor. We have what I call the generic parts. These are parts that are very common to all dental surveyors. And there are others, parts of it which can be different, and this is because of the type of surveyor that you are dealing with. Now, if you look at types of surveyor here, we have nail surveyor, we have Jelenko surveyor, we have Williams surveyor, we have retentoscope surveyor, we have stressograph surveyor, we have zirconium, broken arm cast surveyor, electrical computerized surveyor, optical surveyor, intraoral surveyor, and parallelometer. So you see that there are different types of surveyor. But if you are looking at the parts of a surveyor, generically, all these parts are present, namely horizontal base, upright column, cross arm with spindle housing, spindle with two holder, survey table, base, tilt top with cast clamp and lock screw, then survey tools. These parts are very common to all types of surveyor. So there's no surveyor that you will not see this part. But there are more parts, depends on the brand of surveyor you are dealing with. Then if you look at the accessories, we have so many accessories. There are 5 of them. You know, we'll be seeing them in the course of this lecture. But let me mention one. We have analyzing rod. The analyzing rod helps you to know where the undercut and non-undercut area is and what degree of undercut we have. Then we have the undercut gauges. These gauges are in 0.010, 0.020, 0.030. It depends on the degree of undercut. So the analyzing rod will help you to know the most bulbous area and be able to define the undercut area and non-undercut area. While the gauges will tell you the degree of the undercut. So the undercut gauges consist of a shaft and a lip and a lip. So there's a lip that measures the degree of the undercut and is used to locate and mark desirable undercut and undesirable undercut. When the shaft and the lip contact the tooth simultaneously, the desired undercut is present, then you'll be able to know. The tip of a clamp's retentive arm is positioned on that spot. That is on the desirable undercut area. Then we have the carbon marker. The carbon marker is what you use to define the survey line. Once you discover where the most bulbous area is, the carbon marker will help you to make the mark there and be able to know that this is the most bulbous area. And from that point, you can now discover the undercut and non-undercut area. Then you have the blockout tools. The blockout tools are in types, and then you will see more of what I'm saying now as we go along in this lecture. So let's move to the. Now, here you see different types of surveyor. You see in the school, if you come here for following my pointer, in the school, you know that this is the type of surveyor we have. It's different from the one in the middle. The one in the middle is also a type of surveyor. There's another one here. You see the A surveyor, which I label A, the B surveyor, and the C surveyor. They are different and unique in their own ways. So, but they do the same thing. They do the same thing, but they appeal to different design and different conveniences of the user. Let me give you an example of what I meant by that. The Surveyor C here. Surveyor C here is designed in such a way that you cannot move the arm as much as you move the arm of Surveyor B. So Surveyor B, Surveyor A, they are quite different in their way, in their design. And so they are different. But I can tell you they do virtually the same thing. If you look at Surveyor B, the base is very big and it stands very firm on the table. And you can see on Surveyor B that there is a reddish spot there where the tools are kept. But if you look at Surveyor A, you can't find something like that. And if this place is supposed to be, which I assume, is also a different design altogether. So the parts of a surveyor are supposed to be movable, especially the arm, and the model table supposed to be movable so that you can manipulate and be able to do your job and do the surveying conveniently. If you look at Surveyor A rather, you see it has a knob there that controls the entire model holder. Let me use that word. Let me borrow it temporarily. And here it is a different ball game for this. But paramount to all of them, they must have a table where you secure your model, and they must have an arm where you place the accessories and be able to do the surveying procedure. So these are the two types. We have so many of them. I indicated to you how many previously that I can just locate on the internet. Very many, and they play the same role, but the convenience of the user is what varies from one surveyor to another. This is surveyor for you now. You see this surveyor, the arm number 4 is not movable. It's stiff. You can't compare with the previous one, like surveyor B, where the arm can move in different directions. So this is what I meant by the design appealing to different conveniences of the user. Now you see this one, you see the survey, the model table, you see the long arm. Let's look at them together. Surveying platform. Number 1, survey platform, that is the big platform that the entire surveyor is sitting on. The survey table, that is a table where the model is attached. You see a knob there where you can control. You can control the table. You can move it in order to achieve different kind of tilt. As you go along, you will know the tilting that we're talking about. Then we have a surveying arm. The surveying arm is where the accessory is connected, where the accessory is connected. It goes through this horizontal arm. So you can call it vertical arm if you like. The number 6, which is where you put the madre, where you put the accessory, as a madre where you control the tools. This also can be moved up and down with the help of this knob. But you see, these two cannot move up and down, unlike the previous one, unlike the previous, what is it called? The previous articulator, surveyor that I showed you, sorry. The previous surveyor I showed you. And the special tools that is indicated on this surveyor, this is where you put all the accessories. Depends on the work you want to do. So that is a surveyor for you, so simply designed, but as a matter of fact, can do its job without any issue, but cannot be so versatile with the previous one I just showed you. Look at another one too. This is dental surveyor parts. This is more like the one you just saw, but as a matter of fact, it's well labeled. Well labeled that you can understand the parts more than you did in the previous surveyor that I showed you. The surveying platform, which is usually the base, it is usually very wide and supportive of all other parts of the surveyor. Then the vertical arm, usually that connects the arm where you move to do your survey. So usually it's very sturdy and strong. Then you have the cross arm with spindle housing. That is number C there. This is what controls, this is the arm that is connecting the screw that locks the spindle. Then the vertical spindle arm, which is this. The E, that is the screw, controls the movement of the vertical arm. So this is how this is labeled. Now, one most important aspect I want to show you is the model table. You see, the model table contains a knot that is labeled P. That is this is where you unscrew this to accommodate the model. And there's a model clamp there. These are 3 clamps. They are usually positioned in triangular locations so that your model can sit in here. Once your model sits in here, the lock will help you put it firm and determine the location without movement. Whereas the model table lock, this is K here, enables you to tilt. If you unscrew this, then you can move the model table the way you like. So it moves, and it moves along the rotating ring, which is M here. So the K is very important, the P very important as well. They help you to move your model to assume the tilt that you want. Tilt is position of rotation. Then the G, which is another knob there, helps you to unscrew and insert the tool that you want to use. Which tool do you want to use? Once you unscrew the G, then you can place it in there or remove the one you don't want. These are very important. These are very important parts of a surveyor that helps you to use the surveyor and do your survey. This one part, this is a type of surveyor, which if you look critically, is different, is the same with this, rather, it's the same. They share a lot of similarities. They're quite different from surveyor B here, which I tell you, is very complex, very, very good, detailed, and you can do a lot of work. This one too also contains, it also contains all the parts that I mentioned previously. You see the triangular lock here. It is in between this golden color stud that you are seeing here that you put your model. And here there's a knob at the back that you can unscrew to accommodate the size of your model. And then once you do that, your model is seated, you can lock it back so that it's firm. And you have a control here which enables you to rotate your model and get the tilt of your choice. And you have the knob here on the vertical arm the spindle, which helps you to place accessory. So for every surveyor, as a matter of fact, you see all these parts. They help you to do surveying. So we will move out of here and then look at different accessories that a surveyor has. If you go back to look at this N, if you look at this N, label N, you see all the accessories are there. The accessories they are there, they are the one that are here. They are separated now for your view. I call this chisel. You see, it has a flat head and a sharp end. Then these are the undercut gauges. I mentioned them before. The undercut gauges, this is the carbon marker. Carbon marker I mentioned before helps you to mark the survey line. The analyzing rod, once you place this analyzing rod against the most bulbous aspect of a tooth in relation to the occlusal plane, you'll be able to get the undercut area and the non-undercut area. Then the carbon marker will help you to mark it. Once you mark it, then you'll be able to know where the survey line is and know the undercut and non-undercut areas. The undercut gauges will help you to know the degree of the undercut, whether it is suitable to put an arm of a clasp above or below or around it. This undercut gauge will help you. The chisel helps you to do one important thing. If you want to block out an undesirable undercut with your material, wires, usually with wires, then the chisel will help you to level it down. You're able to level the block out material so that you'll be able to block out the undesirable undercut. Let me say at this point that desirable and undesirable undercut. Desirable undercut are the ones that you can engage, that can engage the parts of your partial denture for retention of your appliance, of your removable appliance. The undesirable undercut, well, it's not useful because if you place a clasp arm there, it will not be possible for the patient to use it or to remove the denture from the mouth. So it's a difficult, a non-adequate area is not useful for undesirable undercut. Sorry, undesirable undercut is not useful in the planning and the fabrication of your partial denture. Again, let's look at surveying again. What should surveying help you to do? As a dental technologist, why do you need to survey in the first place? What is the need to survey? Should you not just lay your wires and start doing your work? Surveyor help you to determine the attachment, the different parts of a partial denture that is needed for the partial denture to be retentive and functional. There is guide surfaces, guide plane. They are usually made by the dentist to help, for example, a tooth that does not have undercut that is useful, and that tooth has been determined to be very vital, and you want to engage it, you want to use a clasp, then the dentist will have to recontour that tooth and give you undercut and non-undercut area. This has to be done clinically. They are not done in the lab. Then survey helps you to determine paths of insertion and of displacement. If a tooth is going to be displaced, or the part of insertion of that, if a partial denture will face displacement, or part of insertion, surveying will help you to determine all this. The surveying sequence will help you to define different types of survey line that you may have on a tooth to help you determine which is more appropriate for the particular appliance that you want to make. Then the surveying also help you to know tilting, how you tilt a cast. Is it a horizontal tilt, vertical? You get to know all these things later as you go on. It will also help you to position where the retentive arm of a clasp of your partial denture will be. These are very important. And it will also help you to record the orientation of the cast. Of course, as I told you previously, if you place your model that you want to survey on the table and it is locked, it has to be rotated so that you can get different survey lines and be able to define the most favorable undercut area and the kind of part of partial denture that is going to be used for retention. So that is about the surveying, why you need to survey. Then let us look at principles. Let's look at principles of survey and design. There are guiding principles. Principles are tenets, rules, fundamental essence that guide something. So what is the essence of surveying or to survey or design? Why? Why is it necessary? I mentioned briefly on this, but I want to put them in a more clear perspective. So principles of dental survey and design are those factors that guide the surveying of dental models and design partial dentures in order to fabricate functional and aesthetically sound dental restoration. And these are the principles that guide survey and design. Purpose, you have to define the purpose of survey, purpose of design, purpose of a surveyor, parts of a surveyor, procedure for cast design. These are very important considerations when you are doing surveying. That's what I meant by principles of survey. They are very important and they help you in making or fabricating a partial denture that the patient will use and be happy with in the lab. Here we are, we'll be taking each of these principles one by one. Previously, we have dealt with parts of surveyor. So let us look at purpose of survey. Of course, I've mentioned this previously. You want to analyze the cast and you want to determine part of insertion and part of removal. You want to locate and mark the height of contour. Mind you, undercut could be tissue undercut and can be tooth undercut. It's not only on the tooth that you can have an undercut. You can have it on the tissue as well. So like say, for example, if an edentulous patient has an alveolar ridge that presents a shape that you have an undercut area, that would be a soft tissue undercut. So surveying, it's not just about the tooth that you want to use for anchorage, for retention, but it's about the tissue that a part of this partial denture is going to be covering. So it's very important. That's one of those things. These are some of the things you do during survey. And why do we need to do design? It's to select the best possible removable partial denture components based upon decision made during survey. So you are designing a removable partial denture components, which part, where do you need a rest, where do you need a connector, where do you need a clasp. These are purposes for which this survey are done, so that it will help you to make this important decision. It also helps you combine components into a single workable entity. Now, you want to determine where a rest will be, where a clasp will be, where a connector, major or minor connector would be. You want to put this as a whole together to have a sense of, okay, if I put all this regarding this partial denture, my partial denture is going to be very fine and it's going to present and represent the purpose for which it is meant and be good for the patient. And it's also, surveying helps the dentists and the dental technologists to communicate. It helps them to communicate and then to be able to understand each other when there's a partial case at hand. So the surveyor itself, what is the purpose of a surveyor? I think in the course of my discussion so far, we'll be talking about purpose of surveyor. To survey a cast, locate desirable and undesirable undercuts or cast features, to block out undesirable undercut area, to eliminate undesirable tooth and soft tissue undercuts. Sometimes some changes have to be made to a tooth contour in the clinic so that we can have favorable undercut to engage the parts of the partial denture. Reduces the possibility of distortion during duplication. Once your survey is done and you want to duplicate that model that you want to use to continue your job, the surveyor helps to determine the necessary parts and the necessary marking that have been made so that the duplicated model will present all the details that are needed for you to carry on with your job. It also presents opportunity for you to shape wires that use in blocking out and also in do your cast, because you are going to use wires, the casting wires to do your the different parts of a partial denture that you are designing. So all these are purposes of a surveyor. Surveyor must give you this opportunity to be able to get a removable partial denture that will answer to purpose. Procedure for cast design. Of course, cast design, in this case, marking, locating undercut, non-undercut areas, where a rest should be, where connectors should take, what are the parts that are going to be connected together, how many tooths are going to be replaced, where is the appointment going to stay, and so on and so forth. So these are procedure for cast. And then we start by saying the part of insertion. The part of insertion is how this denture or this partial denture has to be placed in the mouth of the patient. It's going to be from anterior first, sitting down before you press down posteriorly, or it has to be placed down on one side of the mouth, maybe left or right, before the other side is pressed down. These are how part of insertion can be useful, and this has to be part of your design to ensuring that you make a denture that the patient can insert and remove from the mouth. The teeth, like I said before, is orientation of the cast in relation to the occlusal plane. So the teeth, we have different types of teeth there. We have the horizontal teeth, which some book call zero teeth. The horizontal teeth is where that model on your surveyor table is lying flat. It's not bent anyway to any direction. That is horizontal teeth. It's otherwise called zero teeth. Then we have anterior teeth. This is where the model anterior aspect that is facing you is pressed down. Then posterior teeth, where the posterior end is also down, as in you press it down to raise the anterior end. the posterior, the anterior end, the anterior tilt, to press the anterior down to raise the posterior end. This press down and rotation, they are not just going to be very, very much in degrees. They are just slight rotation, slight orientation of the model. Then the lateral, right lateral, and left lateral. Of course, the left aspect of the mouth, or let me say of the model, bend your model towards that direction, towards the left direction, or towards the right direction. These are different orientation. They are called tilt, the way you tilt your model in order to get the survey line in relation to the closer plane, in order to make your survey line and determine the other cut and not other cut area, and be able to produce, fabricate, and a removable partial denture that will be useful to the patient. Of course, we have the tripod, and I was showing you on the surveyor when I was showing you then. Let me try to go back there so you can see what I mean. Okay, I believe you can see this. The tripod is where is the stored part of the model table that is guiding the model. Usually, if you can see my pointer, where I'm pointing at, that's where the anterior will face. And here the two metallic store there, that's where the posterior end of your model will face. And so there's a knob there that locks it. So this helps to ensure that the model is well positioned, to ensure that it's suitable to get your right tilt, several tilts, to be able to determine survey line, and also the part of insertion and part of removal of a removable partial denture. We continue. What are the general rules that guides survey? The general rules. I just touched on a few of them. I know you can see them. What are the general rules? Place marks on surfaces of the cast which are immobile surfaces of the patient's mouth. The marks where you want to put the rest, where you want to put, that is in designing your model, excuse me, where you want to put your survey line, excuse me, the survey line, where you want to put the clasp arm. These are important. Rules, marks that are important to your design. So you try to avoid areas of the cast where the mark might obscure framework. Where you are designing, try to avoid area of the cast where your framework, that your metallic design, will become obscure in the process of your fabrication. For example, if you are making a clasp arm, make sure your drawing is not covered by your wax work, and prevent you from getting necessary guide that will enable you to do your wax work. You mark survey lines with carbon markers so that it doesn't get cleaned off so quickly, and thereby sort of confuse you as the line gets off the right place where it is marked. You find it difficult to know, and during your fabrication, laying of wax and all that, it might be confusing. It also helps you to, as a general rule, final selection of clasp assemblies kind of clamps you want to use. Is it gingerly approaching, whichever you want to find out. Then mark location of retentive tips. Your clamps, of course, have retentive tips. So all this you have to do, take note of when you are designing and you want to start the process of fabricating your removable partial denture. These are rules that are placed together by experienced people. So it is not a rule that you must follow in sequence. It is something to guide you. So you can also define your rules according to your convenience. You can also, because these rules are not just cast in iron, that is, they are not rules that you say, no, it's not possible for me to change it. So it's according to your convenience. These are general rules that some individuals put together to enable you understand the important notes that you want to make when you are doing your survey. Now, I told you before, undercuts can be tooth undercuts and can be tissue undercuts. If you are following my pointer, here you see the alveolar ridge where this tooth is standing and this. Here you have your undercut, tissue undercut. For example, if you are making a denture, and this is not a desirable undercut. If you are making a denture and you let your base, without blocking this undercut, get into this part of the tissue, then that denture cannot be inserted in the mouth of the patient. The patient will shout. So this is tissue undercut for you on lingual side of a ridge. That is a lower design, a lower arch, showing you tissue undercut there. If you look up there, you see the ridge is not having any tissue undercut, but it's having tooth undercut. Like I told you, you define an undercut with, you define a survey line, then undercut and undercut area by placing a straight object that will make contact with the most bulbous area. And that object is called an analyzing rod. And here, you can see the undercut here is very pronounced. And this, you cannot put a clasp arm here. Otherwise, it's going to traumatize this tooth. Here, there's undercut, and the undercut is not so pronounced. You know the extent of undercut with your undercut gauges. Then you'll be able to determine which is suitable for the appliance you want to produce and which is not suitable. What are aims and objectives of surveying? One, to determine the most advantageous part of insertion and removal. I think we have said that over and over again. Locate proximal tooth surface that are or can be made parallel to act as guiding surfaces. The proximal tooth surface is otherwise the most bulbous area. So these are the objectives. Locate and measure recesses or undercut for mechanical retention is to locate where the undercut area is. Undercut, for emphasis, every area below the survey line. And that can be located on a tooth or on a tissue. Identify areas of potential hard, soft, or tissue interferences where you know it is not desirable and it can interfere with removal and insertion of an RPD, then you avoid it. Determine a part of insertion dislodgement consistent with aesthetic requirements. All this has been said before. So these are objectives of survey. What do you want to achieve? That's what is meant by objective. What do you want to achieve with it? Number 6, delineate height of contour of the abutment teeth and identify areas of undercut that must be avoided, reduced, blocked out, or preserved. I think that is explicit. Help in planning restorative procedure. This is one important aspect of surveying. It helps in planning. And that planning, like I said before, it will help you to determine the parts of partial denture that you want to use to make a complete partial denture. And you know parts of partial denture. For emphasis, you have the connector, major connector, minor connector, you have the occlusal red, you have the clasp arm, you have the retentive arm, and so on and so forth. These are different parts that surveying helps you to understand in relation to the shape and the position of the mouth, the position of the teeth that you want to use for abutment, and so on and so forth. So these are very important objective. This is one very important objective of surveying. And record the most ideal cast position for future reference, where there should be need for referencing for the patient. Surveying will help to establish the cast position for that. Establish a formal plan for RPD, of course, this is very important. This is where communication between the lab and the clinic is very important. The survey line and all that have been made in the lab has to be communicated to the clinic. The clinic, like this situation, and the lab must work together to ensure that a good planning, good design is made in the interest of the patient. Of course, I would like to mention also, according to Blatterfield, what are survey lines like? Blatterfield classifies survey lines as high survey line, medium survey line, low survey line, and diagonal survey line. The high survey line, you see, all this is determined by the orientation of your model when you place them on the when you place them on the model table on your surveyor, the closer table, model table of your surveyor. I showed you before. This high survey line is the line nearest to the non-undercut area. Let me say so. The medium will be that which is directly engaging the survey line, and the low survey line will be shortly below the most bubbled aspect, the median survey line. And the diagonal survey line, of course, as the name says, it runs from the tip of the from the occlusal direction of a posterior tooth, for example, down to the neck area. So it runs diagonally. And you see, high survey line, medium survey line, low survey line are usually drawn around the tooth. Where it is different from diagonal is this one tend to, let's say, divide the tooth into two. So I'm just giving an illustration for you to understand. So know that diagonal survey line divides a tooth into two, but it runs from the occlusal direction down to the neck of the tooth. This survey line, help you to determine which of them you are going to engage and which of your clasp arm is going to engage in order for you to design your partial denture. I haven't gone this far. Let me conclude like this. Surveying is delineating the contours of a tooth in order to discover the most bulbous parts so as to distinguish between the undercut and non-undercut areas, which could be classified into tissue or tooth or tissue undercut. The benefits are that it will aid in the designing partial denture framework so as to determine the components of partial denture that are most suitable to use and what location should they be placed. This sums up all that I have been saying so far. And that will be the conclusion of our lectures. And the next thing we will be doing now is to ask questions. Questions that are very important to this lecture. Very important questions that you want to share. And I'll be expecting participants, students here to ask questions regarding what we've been doing. Lecture we'll be having since that is about 1 hour ago. Now, I will unmute you. I don't want you to have difficulty doing so. Ask question. In the event you have issue asking question by speaking, I encourage you to type it in the chat box, then I will attend to your question. But please take note that you should write your name, matric number, and your present location in the chat box. Write your name, matric number, and the location where you are attending the lecture from in the chat box so that we can do our attendance. That is our attendance for today. Please question where you are not sure of my explanation or where you want me to shed more light. That is why I expect you to have been taking your notes as we go along with the lecture. So if there's any question, I'm here to attend to them. Okay, Lawa Iman said, you made mention of the type of surveyor, but while explaining, you were differentiating using A, B, C. Do they have names? Oh, I love that question. If you recall, I mentioned they have names, but I didn't name those ones I call A, B, C. But I mentioned in a slide that show you the list of surveyor that we have. There are more, and I want to advise that you don't need to bother about their names. Like I said, a surveyor is useful when it appeals to the operator, when you can move the arms very freely, when you can insert the accessories very easily and not and tie it down, when your model can be fixed without difficulty. there you see that that surveyor is just good for purpose. So bother not about their names because they are usually brand names. Dental surveyors, they serve the same purpose. Different design according to manufacturers' branding, but they must do the same thing. And if you see that this particular surveyor will not do what you expect to do, of course, when you're going out to make a purchase, you make sure you get a good one that will help you to do your job. I hope, Imam, I'll be able to answer your question. Very interesting question. I'm happy about that. I will be expecting more questions. We'll be having some break in transmission. Let's listen to questions from colleagues. I'm ready to take your questions, but in event that you have not, you have no question to give me, let me come up with my questions. Let me come up with my questions. I have a number of questions here that I want us to share together. And then if you have an answer to this question, I will unmute you now all so that you can be able to speak. Mention the 5 principles of surveying. The 5 principles of surveying. Who can give us an answer to that question? Five principles of surveying. If you have the question, you can answer to the question, you can type in the chat box. Then we attend to it. 5 principles of surveying. Okay, let me go to the next question so that you don't have that answer to that. How many types of survey lines do we have? Mention them. How many types? Mention the types of survey line that you have. How many types? Mention them of survey lines. Anybody with a question? Answer to the question. The number of survey lines we have. Mention them. Do we have anyone can give us the answer? Sorry, you see me going in and out of the classroom because of the internet problem. Okay, students, do you want us to call it a day? If you are still here, because I'm not getting answers to those questions. And I think we can as well call it a day, maybe schedule another time to do question time for survey. If you agree with that, please give me a thumb up. If you agree with my suggestion, please give me a thumb up. Okay. Now, why is not hearing the question? Okay. I put it in the chat box. Okay. If you can see the chat, you see my question. You can speak or you can type an answer. Lawa Iman, can you type an answer? Okay. I would have wished, if not that time has gone, to run over the slides again. But I know time has gone. The number of students here have reduced significantly because probably because of connection. But nevertheless, I think we can actually please, if you have answered the question, please let me listen to your answer. Okay, I think in this situation, let me call it a day so that, like I suggested previously, let's be able to see another time and discuss well about the please, I think, Lawa Iman, we can call it a day. You seem to be the only person I'm seeing her face. If you are hearing me, that would be interesting. Please, can you put a reaction if you are hearing me? Okay. Oh, great. Oh, great, great, great. Lawa, you are really following me. I'm happy. High, low, medium survey lines. High, low, medium, and diagonal. 4 of them. Yes, thumb up for you. Thumb up for you. That's good. You're really following this lecture, and I'm happy with you about that. I want to end the lecture now. And the reason is that it's no longer as interactive as I wanted. And for that reason, I want us to end it so that, Lawa Iman, you want to say something? Okay. Okay. So you agree that we should end it now? Lawa Iman, should we end it because you are the only one I can hear? Should we end the lecture?
Okay, sir.
Oh, great. Oh, great. Now I have a supporter in the house. So everyone that is still hearing me, good night. Thanks for coming.
Yeah.
We shall treat the question another time. So happy night rest.